Let me just turn the music down a touch. Welcome out. What is going on? Thank you so much, Scobsu, with the 29 months, my dude. I appreciate the hell out of that. That is a long time. Who else have we got coming in? OOG with the 56 months. Jesus, 56 months. Thank you so much, OG. Appreciate the hell out. She plays the wonderful Fia in the campaign. 3 months coming in from Damned Mind. Thank you so much. There's a lot more than this. Thank you so much, Pat. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Hey, my buddy Brett. Thanks so much for using your Prime, Brett, for 6 months in a row. Thanks for the Choo Choo Law Train. Appreciate that, buddy. And Corona coming in with the new sub. I appreciate the hell out of that as well. Thank you so much, everyone. I really do appreciate it. It's very sweet. Very sweet. I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome out to a Sunday, not Godforged stream. Not really. But a law stream. A law stream. Thank you so much for those subs. I really appreciate it. Let me get old Brett a shout out as well. Yo, Liam coming in with the 55 months. Whoa, these 50 pluses. That's insane. Thank you so much for the 55 months in a row, my dude. Lawforged. You go and check out Brett, by the way. He plays a lot of D&D as well. I appreciate the hell out of that. So much so, Liam. I hope to see you again soon, my friend. I know you're playing a lot of Final Fantasy. So, welcome out, everybody. I appreciate everyone popping in for this little Sunday stream. I wanted to do a little recap road for the story so far. We're up to episode 18, so I thought I'd write together kind of a synopsis for each episode, probably talk about it in little chunks, and then just do a Q&A for the world itself, all the lore, some of the stuff that might be coming up, or some of the stuff that you might have kind of been wondering along the way. I won't be giving any spoilers for future stuff necessarily, but if you have any questions about the lore and whatnot. In the meanwhile, what I'll probably do is, if you have a question, if you go to the Discord, this one, and you go to... Should I make another channel for it? Maybe I should just make a little quick channel for it. Under the Godforged campaign, I'm just going to make... questions. I'm just going to make a channel called questions, because I can't actually put Q&A, because Discord has really dumb features for that. You should all be able to see it. Under the Godforged campaign tab, you should be able to see... Let me move Arena down as well. Arena's way too high up. Let me move Arena down below Godforged campaign. You should be able to see questions. So just post in that channel if you have any questions that you want to preemptively put in there. Because at the beginning, we're first going to go through like episodic-based stuff and talk about this show so far. And kind of I'm going to clump up the episodes in like 5 bursts. Thank you so much, Big Swig, coming in with that new sub as well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Very generous. Welcome. So essentially, this is a stream for anyone who hasn't watched the show so far and is looking to kind of get into it. We play every Sunday at this time, usually, for 3 to 4 hours. And essentially, I've kind of written up synopses of all the episodes, all 18 episodes, and what happens in each. So I'll probably read them out in like 5 episode bursts, and then we get into that. Or like 3 or 4. It depends. You got it right? I know. The first thing I'd like to say, though, because we usually have a slot here for our sponsor, Dungeon&Fog, who have kindly sponsored us for this month and been sponsoring the Godforged campaign. I wanted to give a little shout out to Dungeon&Fog now, in general, because we're taking a week off, so I feel like it's fair. If you wanted to check out Dungeon&Fog, it is a browser-based map-making tool that had been kindly sponsoring us. I've been building my maps on there, and I mostly build battle maps, but you can build full dungeons. You can even play on the tool. It has a premium service. I believe they've just done their rework of their rebranding, which I'm excited to check out. I haven't actually had a chance to check out all of the new features and stuff yet. But they have a premium service, and it's free to use if you'd prefer that. The premium service adds a bunch of different tools, assets, and all sorts. But if you go to the annual service tab and you put the word Godforged, all one word, remember the D, you will be able to get 10% off annual subscriptions. Let me know if that works, and yeah, hit me up. Thank you. Whoa, Big Swig! I look across at the chat. We don't have these notifications on this screen because I always forgot to set them up. Big Swig, thank you so much for dropping that 20 gifted subs. That is extremely kind. Gifting us up to Monat, Fervens, Tolkas, Sudo, Turbo, Itzfu, Draputi, Hereth, Alexic, Gix, Ikoma, Straw Glasses, Edot, Tenton, Red Oceans, Colgardi, John Wong Bong, Dapper One, Philip, and another Carter. Be sure to thank Big Swig for that, everybody. That's so kind. Very, very generous. I really appreciate that. You didn't have to do that at all. That's very kind of you. Thanks so much for that. That's unbelievably kind. I was looking over here, like thinking, like getting all my mind straight with the sponsor stuff, and I look over to the right, and you dropped a big one. But yes, Dungeon Fog, everybody, if you want to go and check that out, they've kindly been sponsoring the show so far. So thank you so much again, Big Swig. What's up, Dodger? Good to see you, buddy. Dodger's another person in the campaign. She plays Fabia. So I'm trying to think what order we want to go in. I feel like if you have any questions, throw them in the questions channel in the Godforged Discord. There's like overarching questions and whatnot. I'll also talk about some of the Patreon. There's actually an exciting part of the Patreon where I did a choose your own adventure called The Shifting Sands of the Vahazi. And I want to talk about that a little bit because it actually came into play in the campaign so far, which I get to finally talk about. So anyone who did support the Patreon via that, we get to finally talk about that. Okay. You just call me out here. That's cool. Okay. Let me swap over to this. I'll put some of this music on. This is good. This is good music. Home to learn more about the lore, only watch the one episode. So this is the way we'll do it in, right? I'll talk about the campaign episodes, and we'll break it up. And then we'll take any questions, and I can talk about any of the lore and questions you might have. So be sure to, as we talk about this and do little bits, write down, I mean, like, say we do like the first 4 episodes, you can ask questions about those episodes. I'll probably save questions about later ones till later. There will be spoilers today. Bear in mind, if you're coming in for the first time, it's a good place to come in because you can just get started at episode 19 when we return next week. Otherwise, there will be spoilers as we go along, but I'll be saying the episode titles and stuff. So if you hear any like tag words or like you're like, oh, I like the sound of that, I want to ask more about that, remember the question, rather put it in the Discord or just keep it ready, and then we can answer it afterwards, so we don't miss out on it. Did the stream just start? Yes, we're just about to start talking about the lore. Or talking about the episodes. Okay, so let me flick over to this scene because I have our characters in the background, and I think it's easier to kind of vision it. In an ideal world, I would have been able to get clips of all of the different episodes and everything sorted and have pictures come up and whatnot. But unfortunately, I was building this over the last couple of hours. And I was like, do you know what? I'll probably just go as a Q&A. But then I thought to do a big old recap would probably be better as well. Yes, yeah, this animation is so beautiful. This is the work of both Seabear and Keijo. I'm there, just rolled a 29. That's true. That's true. If you have a picture on hand of Fabia, I can throw it up there as well. Okay. So. Let's kick off with the first part of the campaign. Does it to you? Sweet. I'll throw it up there. In fact, I'll throw it up there at a particular episode. So, Godforged, the story so far. For those who are just coming in. Godforged takes place in the continent of Verreath. It's set 40 or so years after a devastating war, known as the War for More, between the nations of Westmorn and Crestfall. Up until 20 years ago, for several hundred years, magic disappeared from the continent. Only a select random few could still wield it. This period became known as the Drought. When the flood of magic returned, the continent had to adapt quickly. Just over a year ago, we had a pre-campaign, like a tutorial session to bring a few players in. Our pre-campaign tutorial sessions took place outside the town of Dunwell, in the southeastern region of Kessex, where a few of our current adventurers were captured and caged upon the road. Thea, played by Old Lady Gamer, a human sorcerer with an affinity for fire and gold. Saphira, a tall, broad, pale-skinned tiefling barbarian played by Jari, and Basil, played by Brebun, a farm-born half-orc bard. They escaped captivity and found out townsfolk from Dunwell were being kidnapped, and the suspicions were on a man named Ramir and his silk bandits. They informed the gluttonous, rude mayor, Yul Schwett, before setting out to Rotfellow's cave. The party battled through bandits, rescued the townsfolk, but Ramir had escaped. In the cave, they took Silk, the goblin, they took him captive, sorry. He was a mascot companion to Ramir and the bandits. They also found an altar that spoke of a creature known as Volrend, and had been contained by another creature named Onmithis. When they return to the town, they find that the mayor has rushed off suspiciously toward the far eastern Baron of Kessex, instead of the local one. The party, now named the Cockslayers after killing a few cockatrices, set out toward Carburn, a town to the south, to meet with the young Baron Benjen Ashford. With their captive in hand, that leads us on to Episode 1, A Field of Worms. Yes, he is as disgusting as his name sounds. So I'll do the first couple of episodes and then we can discuss. First, we loved that show, would name them that. Episode 1, A Field of Worms, begins with our heroes heading toward an inn known as the Rock's Roost. There, they meet Timothy, played by Shane Hawke, a dwarven cleric serving Somra, the goddess of healing, and Skold, played by Strippin, a Krigven fighter. Krigven are essentially polar bear warriors of honor, on their hind legs, the tall, broad warriors. The group make quick friends and end up paying a man named Erti to see the local rock hunt. Early in the morning, the adventuring party meet with Erti and journey to a nearby field to watch a bloom of worms mating. These worms are 3 to 5 feet long and glow in the dark. Soon after, the magnificent rock, a great bird spanning the same wingspan as a dragon, but an eagle in design, makes its entrance. Whilst it flies away, Erti is concerned to see the griffin, that usually hunts just after the rock, is not coming down from the nearby hills. The party head off to investigate, only to find the creature dead, and associates of Ramir waiting for the party. After a fight in which they let one bandit go and scared off a hungry Etin, the party take a griffin egg for Erti to look after, and make their way toward Carburn, which, as they close their distance, they can see is ablaze with fire. So, you forgot about the worms? Yeah. So that's episode 1. Episode 2, Fire and Brews. Arriving at Carburn, the party lend their aid to help against the fire that townsfolk are drastically trying to put out. The town is large and the fire is located in the poorer of the two districts. They make their way to the source and discover 2 goblin flame skulls, which they promptly defeat. They then get to shopping around the town. The group head into the Half Brewers Brewing Guild and make a deal to find some Kruthic eggs, or queen, for a new brew. The party have no idea what a Kruthic is at this point. Afterwards, they rest in an inn for the night, ending episode 2. Episode 3, Spit for Spat. After this episode, we will do a little talking discussion. After some morning fishing and activities, the group head to meet the Baron. Benjen Ashford is kind to them, but clearly stressed from the fire and recent problems in the town. Goblins have been harassing their fishing boats just north of the town. The party agrees to go and deal with them. They also come across a local man, gathering a crowd, calling for independence in Kessex. During the last war, Kessex was the region most affected by the war, and there's a lot of bitterness towards the capital for it, in the region of High March. On the way, Silk, now becoming more of a friend than a captive, informs the group that he used to be the boss of the local goblins, but was shunted by another called Hob. They deal with one of Hob's captains, a spitting bugbear appropriately named Spit. Silk then heads into the local mountain, planning to go undercover and try to start a rebellion against Hob under Skold's suggestion. The party send their brief farewells and head back to Carburn. Okay, so that's episode 1 to 3 and the pre-campaign. To anyone who's just coming in, to look at the characters so far, Timothy is the dwarf that I'm covering. There he is. And then you've got Saphira next, going from left to right. The tall tiefling with the great axe. You have Skold in the center, who's the broad Krigven, a homebrewed race. And then we have Fia just below that, who is actually only 5'6", right? Which would be tall in kind of the general terms, but she's with a very tall party. And then we have Basil, the bard. So that's it so far. Yes, Baron Ashford, agreeable fellow. I am considering, do I want to capture the... I've got an idea. I'm going to... How do I bring my chat out? I can't remember. I was thinking I might capture the chat on screen. And then when I upload this to YouTube, then people can see your questions via that. I can do that in a bit later. So, we can continue. Episode 4, A Fisherman's Woe, is a short episode. The Cockslayers take up a local bounty contract. A ghostly creature has been harassing the shores downriver. They make their way there and find a river siren, an abyssal humanoid creature with tentacles from the depths that attacks them. On a dockside encounter, they behead the creature and return to Carbon swiftly, ending episode 4. Episode 5, Two Heads Are Better Than None, has the party continuing to earn gold and one another's trust. The Baron informs them of an Etin eating livestock across the river. The party come across the familiar previous foe from episode 1, but this time dispatch it without hesitation. Basil meets a local barmaid by the name of Affy, and the two become infatuated with one another, though their nerves hide it away. Episode 6, Markets and Mountains, begins with, yet again, more fishing, and a visit to the local marketplace. After a brief shopping trip, the party learn that the mountain to the south has been closed off. The dwarves that reside there, under the rule of the Earl of Kessex, Morg Brightstone, had called for soldiers from Carbon to deal with something within the mountain. Before leaving, Thea sends a letter to her contact in Pennytown, a pirate town in the southeastern waters. When they make their way up the mountain, they learn that the closure is due to a monster that they were conveniently hunting, a Kruthic hive. They manage to convince their way past the great doors and meet with some of the local dwarves, offering their aid to their plight. The dwarves bring them in front of Morgus, son of the Earl, a tough dwarven captain of the guard. He informs the group that they're losing levels of the mountain-built town, and they'll be overrun if it continues. He needs someone to go behind the Kruthic lines and limit their numbers. The party agrees and descends down into darkness, where they hear skittering coming their way. I should probably put on some more tense music at this point, because this next section's pretty creepy. Let's go ahead and put this one on. Welcome in, anyone that's just come in. Episode 7. Curiosity lies behind vaulted doors. Starts with a fight. Kruthic, canine bug-like creatures with spiked limbs and digging capabilities attack them in the abandoned dwarf halls. They fight their way through to a forge area and clear it out, where Skoll discovers that a giant had been working previously. Skoll is searching for a giant. His giant. With newfound hope and a staircase leading down, the party first decides to check further along the hall until they come across a vaulted door. Getting past its defenses, a riddle, a charm spell painting, a hall of silence, and a magnetic alarmed chamber, they open a final vault door to discover a huge hall containing 10,000 inanimate Warforged soldiers. The party descend into the hall and find a service exit with a gear-driven elevator. They make their way up to it and find themselves in the back room to the main hall of the Earl. They make their way out into the hall, but the ceremonial guards attempt to take them captive. A brief standoff occurs, where the party, or mostly Skoll, weighs up the decision of taking on the guards, but backs down at the last minute. The Earl, angered by their intrusion, thinking them to be thieves, has them escorted into the cells. Episode 8, In Swarms They Come, opens with interrogations to each of the party. Skoll has already gone, taken somewhere in the mountain. The others managed to convince the dwarves that they had no ill will. When taken in front of the Earl, who informs them that the army was to remain secret and was commissioned by the royals of Westmore, Morgus bursts through the door and calls for more aid in the lower tunnels, escorting our heroes. A huge Kruthic swarm is about to attack, and they need to hold off whilst the gnomish targeting device, aptly called the Targeter, is charging up. With no hope of winning against a frontal assault, they defended the Targeter as hordes of Kruthic overwhelmed them. Skoll fought in a tunnel nearby. After it fully charged, the Kruthic were wiped out by its emitting waves, and the Targeter ceased to function. Cheers of victory filled the tunnels, from both dwarves and Carbon soldiers alike. They had survived. Episode 9, The Hive. Had the party reuniting with Skold before heading down deeper into the halls of Anhor. With them came Morgus. With his beard flail attached, he was searching for his brother, who had been taken weeks before. They fought their way down to the lower dungeons of the town, finding where the Kruthic had tunneled up from. Pheromones lined the entrance, and this Kruthic hive tunneling up was no accident. They made their way down for miles until they arrived at the hive. They slew more Kruthic and the hive lord that guarded the area, and heard the screeches of the queen deeper within. The party stood off against the queen in her lair. They eventually killed her, but not before Saphira and Skold were impaled by small spikes, which they promptly removed. With the queen dead, the episode finished. I'll give episode 10 and then that's the end of chapter 1. Episode 10. Fish. It's always fish. Started where we left off, with a group gathering Kruthic fluid and eggs. They also found a baby Kruthic queen, which they briefly thought to bring with them as a pet, until Fia subtly mind-spiked it. Probably for the best. Finding the room where the Kruthic had taken captives to devour, they found Morgus' brother Morgan, gaunt, but alive. Skold also found a half-eaten giant, still on the edge of life. He gifted Skold a magical belt and informed him that his own Krigven had betrayed him and left him for dead. He did not know Skold's giant, but he told him that the giants heard a calling. He asked Skold to put him out of his misery, and the group left the tunnels, bringing with them another survivor named Ovid, a prisoner convicted for murder. He tells the group he saw the Earl sneak down and place the pheromones. The Earl thanks him for saving his son, but discredits their suspicions against him. He vows to look into the mystery, and the group realize it might have something to do with the hidden army. In the dead of night, Saphira and Skold have larvae queens burst from under their skin, where the spikes had pierced into them, laying eggs inside. But with a well-timed fireball, Fear incinerated them before they could burrow away. Before leaving, Timothy considers the thought of eventually living in this mountain. His purpose for setting out from home was to find a new mine for his family. They abandoned Ovid outside of the town and said their farewells, heading to Carbon. On the road, they passed soldiers returning themselves, and cheers erupted from them. The party were considered heroes. And that, I would say, although the 18 episodes is the end of Act 1, I would say that's the end of Chapter 1. So, does anyone have any questions about the story so far? Because otherwise I'll just keep hammering through the story and then we can take all questions at the end. We can talk about Chapter 1 if you like, which is the events leading up to Carbon and also the entirety of Anhor. Sorry if I missed anything, by the way. Remember, if you wanted to put any questions that you don't want to get lost, put them in the questions channel under the Godforged tab, and you'll be able to see them there. Okay. Let me just save something for a second. Okay. Thank you very much, Brett. Was there anything you'd hoped we'd pick up on before heading to Stone Spur that we didn't? How do you mean? Anything that you'd pick up on? As in suspicions? Or I'm going to open up my chat and I'll record the chat. So if you're like, no, go there. No, I think you guys were really thorough. When you were first setting off, you were very thorough. You searched around pretty much everywhere that I had planned for you to kind of, or hoped that you would go. You kind of experienced you drained Carbon of content, really. You guys went through pretty much every shop, got to experience most of the things around Carbon. There was definitely some Easter eggs thrown in there, which you didn't pick up on, which I can't really speak about. But for the most part, you guys were pretty thorough. You were pretty thorough. Did you expect Basil and Affy to start dating? No, my only notes on Affy and Basil were, or in particular, Affy, is I wanted to have a where is that with Twitch? That one. Here we go. Put this over here. Let me just edit this down. I I wanted there to be a barmaid that would have that kind of crush, but I didn't expect necessarily that anything would ever come of that. So for the most part, that was just there to. I'll put this up here. There you go. It's a good spot. Good old Timothy's nice and short, so I can just stick that in the corner. Hello, VOD watchers. Yeah, that would be helpful just because I realized that I should probably upload this to YouTube and then they can just check it out on there. But my only note that I had for it was barmaid crushes on Basil and is nervous around him. That's it. And then it turned into one of the sweetest storylines in the campaign. Pretty much all of the NPCs are off doing their own thing while the adventure is happening. Are you expecting any of these temporary partners like Ovid, who doesn't explicitly help the party, to be set on a crash course with the party in the future? I like that. I love when the party forgets about something and eventually runs into it again. I do like that. I like fate coincidences in fantasy and storytelling. I love the idea that, sure, the world is a big place, right? And realistically, would Ovid ever run into this party again? Probably not, realistically. Will they run into Ovid? Probably, if they go the right places. I have an idea for where Ovid goes afterwards. And I could see them running into him again. So I would say I kind of always come... If they're departing with someone, I always kind of have an idea where the NPC might go. Easter eggs, reference like, or some interesting stuff, i.e. additional lore bits. Lore bits and investigation-based stuff, I would say. There is a little Easter egg I threw in for... I'll give you this one. I'll talk about this later on with when we talk about the Patreon stuff. There's a little Easter egg I gave early on where... I won't spoil too much. But there's a... Because in case someone shuts off now and they want to go and watch the rest of the episodes. There's a Patreon chapter in the Choose Your Own Adventure about a little boy being transported. And they drop off a sailor at the beginning. That sailor was the one who gave them the Fisherman's Woe mission. So there's little bits like that which they could have discovered for fun. Was there any oh shit moment for you in episodes 1 to 10? I didn't see coming. Oh, absolutely. To go through them, I think the major one was the vault. I expected you guys to go through the vault. Because, let's face it, you throw a vault at a Dungeons and Dragons party and they know that there's no guards around and they see a riddle, they're going to answer the riddle, right? Like, temptation is going to kick off. I expected them to get to the end of the vault and look at the Warforged and be like, wow, mystery. Let's leave again, let's go and do our mission. They climbed down. And I was like, okay, well, they climbed down. And then I remember Sam asked, is there any, like, door or anything? And I realized, well, they're not going to put 10,000 Warforged in this room, right, through a bloody vault door that's only a few feet wide. That would be a ridiculous job. It doesn't make any sense, production-wise. So, yeah, I have a service exit. And then, so he's like, okay, the service exit, let's open that up. So he opens it up, and he goes, what's behind it? And I was thinking to myself, well, they'd have to get it down from the production line, but they'd also need a way to get this army up topside, right? So, yeah, it would lead up to the top side. So there's an elevator there. Service exit. Let's go up it. Okay. Where would this lead? Well, it makes sense if it leads to the Earl's Hall, because it's a secret project that he is officiating over. So that whole section there, I had no plan for. I thought they would turn around after seeing the army and be like, we're going to have to question the Earl about this later. But they actively went up and got captured by the Earl, and it turned into a whole different thing. I didn't think the episode, which was the 1 minute hold-off episode where they had to take on waves of enemies, would happen at all, because I thought that they would have done their secret mission going down. There was a moment where they got to the tunnel of the Krothic Hive, but I wrote in my notes, like, they have to find a way to be sneaky and remember the Krothic going past and time themselves going down. But I thought, in the time that they were captives, the Krothic would have come out of the tunnel and they would never have had to do that part. So, yeah, definitely. Are there any plans for guest stars in the future? Absolutely, yeah. The only reason we haven't done the guest stars so far is mostly because we're still getting our footing as a show. But I absolutely want to bring in guest stars. I've have so many friends that I would love to invite to come and play as a character. For sure. ages ago, Georgia was to join the party if she had the time to when she moved to England. So when that couldn't really happen back then, I was like, oh, I have to get you on as a guest star regardless. And so initially I was like, Dodger, do you want to come on as a guest star? And then I realized, wait, if Dodger has the time now, let's just get her on as a full member. And so we agreed to come in as a full member. So yeah, in future, guest stars will definitely be a thing. And all my group of friends will probably have characters they can come in and play and stuff all different times. Was it possible for the players to activate the Warforged? I can't remember. Yes, but not in an obvious way. They couldn't have done it from the room. That comes in later who has activity over the Warforged. And they could have technically found how to do it there. For sure. Without spoiling anything. Not from the room. Because the dwarves had no ability to turn them on. The dwarves were building it under essentially a magical lock system. That they couldn't even access themselves. Imagine you're building mobiles which you have to input a password on every time you create one. Think about it now. I don't believe there are any other Warforged roaming around besides the one they find that one painting. Is that a purposeful world building detail? Yeah. I mean, players might be able to choose a Warforged. None have so far, so I haven't really had to discuss the lore with them and where they could come from. Warforged are considered Volcarian tech. Volcaria is a closed-off section of the world, and so you do get the occasional Warforged, which are usually kind of restarted or long ago built. So there are Warforged. They haven't come across any because they're exceptionally rare. Or until now. Though the idea of a player playing a Warforged now could be a really fun one. Like a malfunctioning one of the army, all sorts. Could be really fun. Yes, intentional. It goes in line with... I know we had a question in the Patreon, which I'll answer later, about the tech level that we're dealing with. Question, in the city setting, what's your usual number of go-to quests or activities, aside from shops or trade in general? How much options do you see as enough for your players to have a choice without feeling overburdened by it? That's a good question. I think going into a town, I like the idea of giving them some side quests that they can do, right? And coming up with some cool little functional ones. The best way I can explain I do it is I'll look at the town, I'll design what the town is. And its kind of major themes and overarching styles and kind of culture. And then I look at the location. Is it next to forests? What kind of threats would they have from a forest? If it's next to a river, what kind of river threats would they have? And then come up with some ones based on that. But essentially, I think for the first one, going into Carburn, I gave them a few. But that was to kind of get a feel of the campaign. In the future, I imagine I'll come up with a couple of activities or a few activities they can do. But let them shape what the side quest might be. And only if it makes sense for the town to have that kind of threat or side quest. Essentially. But I don't think I have a set number that I go in with. Sometimes I'll throw in a few more if I come up with a fun idea and I want to use that idea. But mostly, I mean, I think one thing you can always bet on is that when players arrive to a town, they're going to check out the shops first, or at least some of the royalty or the leaders of the town first, before looking for side quests. And so you can get a kind of idea of what they're looking for based on that. So that's when I usually design afterwards. You're so ready for a fight when they entered the throne room. That's an interesting section because Sam likes to think that he'll be able to take them on. But looking at the throne room guards, I had basic statistics for them, but I was using the knight template from the monster manual. So that would have been challenge rate of 3, and there's like 16 of them. So it's... Could they have won the fight? For sure. It would have changed the entire campaign, though, if they had managed to do it. And I like to think that the ceremonial guards will be the toughest they could fight in terms of guards. If you make your players too strong, they could essentially just go into any town and win. If they'd killed the Earl, they would have been enemies of the entirety of Westmont. Because they would have been assassins of an Earl. So, that'd have been interesting. Need a bigger screen for all the guest stars. I might have to change around how the cameras are set up at some point to allow for it. Okay, yeah, all guest stars become permanent party members. The charging Warforged in the expensive inn? Yes. I want someone to write a poem about that one painting. It's a great title. Yeah. Not knowing about this. Are the players playing as gods? No. So the Godforged refers to a pantheon of gods that were created in a thing called the Godforged. Which actually, if I turn off the chat on this section on the chat here for a second, you can see it in the background. That on the far left of our intro screen there is the Godforged in the background. It's essentially a massive device able to ascend mortal beings into godhood that was lost many millennia ago. The players are just in that world. And a lot of the major religion is based around the gods. Is there a basics I could look at? Probably go back and watch this VOD is the best way to get into it. Or look at the YouTube, which this is a YouTube link. I'll get onto the other episodes in a second. We'll get to the next section. I'll read like 6 more episodes. Someone want to do some art for the campaign. Where should they forward art? Is the Discord fine? Yes, there's an art section in the Discord, in our Forged Discord, which is this link. There's an art section in there, or tweet at me. I usually retweet it all and save it up. We have a little intermission screen. It's not on my current OBS here because I use OBS Studio for the actual show. But we have an intermission screen where we show off all the fan art when we go for a break. You played an old Warforged? That sounds fun. I'd welcome it in with open arms. That'd be awesome. Little creaky in the knees. Thought it was a glowing egg. If the dwarves had lost the mountain completely, how would that have affected the Baron's plans? Luckily, I don't want to spoil. I'll put that question in the Discord. Actually, put that question in the questions Discord because I think it spoils something later on. Which, just in case people quit out and want to go and watch episodes, it will spoil. Sam's PC doesn't believe in the gods, right? So giants in our world come from a time where the Volcarians and giants walked together at the same time when the giants were more numerous. So giants don't really have many gods that they believe in. There's some giants which will believe in some form of deity, but usually kind of ancestors of themselves. They're seen as mostly godless beings, but it's a world where there's undeniably gods. It's just what you define as a god. Are these the creators of everything? No. But are they immensely powerful beings that are somewhat numerous? Yes. So they believe in gods, they just might not serve them. We do an art roll during the breaks, yes. This is mostly for later in the recap. Is the legal system more like the one in the UK or the US? Throw that question in the Discord, in the little questions tab, because I'd like to answer that later on when we get to that chapter. All right, let's go on to episode like 60 or whatever. Or which episode did you read? Just episode 10? Okay, it did go quite fast. Okay. Episode 11, Dates and Favors, is another shopping episode where Basil finally goes on a date with Affy. Sharing their affections for one another, Ertie is waiting for them as they enter the town and gives them a baby griffin, hatched from the egg Skold retrieved. Saphira adopts her and names her Blossom. They make a deal to sell 1,000 bottles of the Kruthic juice, now turned into wine, and meet with the Baron. The party learn that the Archduke of Kessex was assassinated in the capital, and he, along with other nobility of the region, are heading to Albridge, a bridge city, for a ceremony known as the Vouching. The party meet Little Boy, a goblin pretending to be a child that leads them to Silk. Silk has managed to pull together a band of misfits to help him. He tells the party that they need to win a fight in Hobbs' arena. But the catch is that one of them has to be gagged, another blindfolded, another with one hand behind their back, another chained, and another naked. Despite the disadvantages, the group prevail and kill the first few rounds of Hobbs' champions, boars and creatures, before he takes to the arena himself as the Silk. If Silk were to kill Hob, he'd become the new boss again. Episode 12, Long Farewells and Unexpected Greetings, opens with the party defeating Hob and Silk getting the killing blow. He gives them some of the gathered treasure, now the new boss of the goblins, and decides to part towards the Sister Cliffs, the location where they first found him, and the altar. The party make a deal for Silk not to slaughter the kobolds that reside there, as the pre-campaign party had made friends with them by providing them honey. Saying goodbye to Silk, the party returns to the town and finally gets to know one another around a tavern. That night, Something sneaks into Timothy's room and steals from him. They rush around trying to find this stealthy thief. And finally, discover... Let me add it to this page here. Oh. Just popped up on screen. They finally discover... Hey! Let me put her in the little party section in the back. Our newest cast member. Shrink her down. Probably about this. No, you're smaller than that, right? About that height. A Largo, which is a rabbit person named Fabia, played by Dex Bonus. Impressed by her ability, they make a deal for her to stick around, as she seems to know Ramir. She joins the party. The second smallest? Yeah, I think so. Was that your Fabia voice? Yeah, hey! I'm Fabia! Okay. Episode 13, The Quiet Ones, has the party saying their final farewells around Carburn. Basil informs Affy he'll see her again, and the party set off with the Baron. He doesn't seem too keen about becoming Duke, if he were to win the vouching, but they do help him lift his spirits. The Baron is accompanied by guards, and a small force of mercenaries known as the Cobblers. Fabia seems to know the location of Ramir, having robbed him previously, and helps lead the party off-road toward an abandoned fort. They come to a muddy stream, and when attempting to cross the small bridge over it, they find themselves stuck to it, and in the jaws of a mimic opening up beneath their feet. Episode 14, A Bridge Too Far, opens with a battle against the bridge mimic. After killing it, the group start making preparations to deal with Ramir. His hilltop fort is full with bandits, so they attempt a stealth mission whilst the brawlers wait by the door. Fabia, Fia, and Basil almost manage to sneak through the back of the fort and break into Ramir's chambers. Fabia making full use of a secretive gem that she has stolen that allows her to turn invisible, as long as she's holding her breath. When they accidentally shatter the window, Fabia overhears the bandits preparing for battle, and the brawlers rush in, smashing through the front gate. The clash at Fort Helmwold begins. Episode 15, The Clash at Fort Helmwold, has the party fighting around 20 bandits, including the one they previously let get away in episode 1, before facing off against Ramir himself. During a fiery, bloody battle, they finally kill Ramir and take captive his companion, an Easterly woman that seemed to deal well with mages. Whilst trying to interrogate her, Ramir's body rose from the ground and began morphing into a huge, mutated monstrosity. They fought against it, taking some bloody beatings, but finally killed Ramir in the end. Their captive died during the fight, but Timothy revived her with a diamond. They questioned her, discovering that the creature that lies in the Sister Cliffs, known as Volrend, was once a giant named Magnathor, and Yul, the master of Ramir, was attempting to revive him. Before they could let her go, and deliberating over whether she should die, Fia decided to magic missile her. Another thing that I did leave out as well is they discovered who On Mythis was. A childhood story, the one who had banished this Volrend into this altar. On Mythis was a childhood story of a violet purple scale dragon that had travelled round during the time of dragons, during the Chromatic Empire. Episode 16, Albridge, had the party finally discover the bridge city in which the vouching was to take place. Along the road, they met Cadven, a kind-hearted magic salesman that travelled with a group of kobolds named Ko, Mo, Do, and Dragon. They escorted him to the city and began looking around. After shopping at Cadven's, they met with the Baron, who told them that he had a shot at winning the vouching. He would need the support of 3 nobles and the underbridge section of the city. The party rested in the nicest, most expensive tavern in the city before setting out the next morning. We've got 2 more episodes and then we can do all the questions. Episode 17, Knockout Politics, had the party split up to cover more ground. Basil, Fia, and Fabia ventured to the elven house of Eromis and convinced them to back the Baron with some sweet-talking and exclusivity deal for the wine. They then visited the Ort family, a war hero named Cecilia agreed to back the Baron as an advisor and stand down at the vouching herself, which she was going to go for Duke for herself. Meanwhile, Skuld, Timothy, and Saphira convinced the halfling agriculture juggernauts known as the Riverfoot family to back the Baron through kind words and a promise of an egg from Blossom. And finally, Underbridge agreed to back him so long as the party dealt with a threat in the lowest slums of the city known as Below Water. The party met up and went down into the lower sections, finding paranoid civilians afoot. Journeying through the sewers and into the toxic tunnels below, they came across a Maledrix and prepared for battle. Finally, the final episode of Act 1, and the last episode we shot last week. Episode 18, The Vouching. Opened with the party killing the Maledrix and discovering its calcified heart was intact. After Fabia put her ear to it, she heard the whispers of the previous victims from within, and they mentioned a paladin known as Farin could have been involved. They informed Underbridge that they dealt with the threat and now had all four backing the Baron. After confronting Farin at the Temple of Xeris, the gods of kings and justice, they spoke with a magistrate and opened a case against Farin. The next morning, they made their way to the vouching, amidst thousands of onlookers. Each candidate took to the stage and gave their reason for wanting to become Duke. Uriel Schwett gave false promises. Baron Erid Rush, the Baron from the eastern section of Kessex, insulted the crowd. Cecilia Ort backed Baron Ashford. And finally, Benjamin Ashford took to the stage. Instead of speaking about why he wanted to become Duke, he spoke of the history of Kessex. He informed the crowd of his real identity, Haemon II, the descendant to the Kessex throne, and told them that his announcement of wishing to be king may start a war. But he has an army, revealing Warforged soldiers behind him, the same ones from the vault. The crowd erupted in cheers as the nobility had been convinced by the party to back the Baron. Now the King of Kessex. A war was about to begin, and thus ends Act 1 of Godforged. And that is now up to date.